good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. I'm super excited to be with you today. And I'm getting toward the end of a recording cycle, and it's been just a wild and crazy ride. Thank you for everyone who listens to this podcast, who has listened to the podcast, who continues to listen to it, for all the likes, the shares, the comments, the engagements on social media. It's fantastic. The growth has been absolutely phenomenal over the past uh, 3 to 5 months. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Very grateful for just amazing listenership that you guys truly make this podcast what it is. Without you, we would not be a top 0.5% podcast in the world. So thank you so much for everything you do for that and the support there. Next, without further ado, a little bit of business here at the top. Wherever you're listening, whatever you're doing, if you do have a second, go down to the description of whatever platform you're on: um, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Amazon, Audible, whatever you're listening to your podcast on. It's everywhere. Go down to the description. Please click the first link in the description to go ahead and sign up for the email newsletter that comes out 2 times a week. Great way to stay engaged and keep up with the podcast. So, and then lastly, make sure you go over to the website, ballboymedia.com. You can find absolutely everything I've ever written, everything I've ever recorded, everything I've ever done, multiple different podcasts that have come and go, beat writing that I do during baseball season for the Tri-City Dust Devils, high A affiliate of the LA Angels, and then just blog posts to accompany podcasts. And then, yeah, just a great way to learn more about me, pick my brain, see more about what I'm about over there on the website. So, I think that's all the business. Without further ado, let me introduce the man next to me here. This is Mike. I lost my voice a little bit last night, so I'm a little raspy. I blame the kids. I coach Little League Baseball, and so the kids I was coaching, I had to do a lot of projecting and a lot of redirecting yesterday. But this is Mike, aka the Autism Man, where dedication meets expertise in transforming the autism landscape. A little bit about Mike. He's driven by a profound commitment to integrity and a passion for making a difference in the lives of individuals with autism. He's the founder, CEO, plus education expert of the Autism Man, ensuring that his skills help schools, families, and individuals all over the U.S. and especially Texas, where he lives with his beautiful family and where he also cheers on the Dallas Stars. Don't know why he would do that, as long as he's not a Cowboys fan. Live happier, more productive lives. So, Mike, you are the Autism Man. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your platform, what you do, why you do it, and all the things.
My gosh. All right. So 28 years in education. Um, I retired from that and uh, followed one of my dreams, which was to be an autism consultant. Um, I work uh, in the Texas area, but I've also got contracts around the state. Um, my business, it's it was one of those dreams that I had way back when, and I kept thinking I'm going to be an autism consultant one of these days, and finally realized the dream, and it just took off. I've got my website is the Autism Man at theautismman.com, and I've got a blog, and the blog readership's gone up. It's just going everything's going straight up, and
Mm-hmm.
so contracts are coming in. I got in the game late, so uh, it's not as I'm not as busy as what I would like to be, but I know that I'm going to be busier. So um, I have I've worked with students with autism for, like I said, over 28 years, and that's where my passion lies. I love what I do, and I love the students that I work with, but I have a real heart and a real passion for the parents who are dealing with these children on a regular basis. Um, and one of the things, it's interesting when you asked me to join your podcast, um, dads are my focus because it seems that in the world of autism, in marriages, dads are the first to bolt. They're the first to give up and say, no more, I can't do this. Where the wife, the mother, hangs in there, and they get through the grief cycle, and they're able to adapt and just you deal with their emotions where men don't want to deal with their emotions. Having a child with autism or a disability is like a physical death of a child. Um, it literally takes them through the grief cycle just as if they lost a child. So in that, uh, it's the death of a dream. That dad that wants the son to play football or go play catch with baseball or shoot hoops, and their child has a disability, especially with autism, where they don't communicate, they don't. So dads are my passion, parents are my passion, and mental health is my passion. So, dad of three wonderful children. Um, they're really not children, but I still call them my children.
Mhm.
26-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So I'm married for 31 years to my college sweetheart, and loving life. So that's
That's
me
a
in a nutshell.
that's amazing. So 28 years, that's a really long time to see the autism landscape develop, change, spectrums go from levels, and just everything really change in the whole autism spectrum disorder landscape. So, what was it like when you started, when you first got into it? Or I guess, what inspired you to even go into it in the first place? Let's start there. What inspired your path in the very first place? 28 years ago,
All right.
you were just sitting there, you're like,
Yeah.
I want to work with those kids. What kind of
Well,
sparked that for you?
this is an interesting one, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible because I don't make a long story longer. Um, I was my actual graduate or undergrad degree is religious education with a Bible minor, and I was trying to go to seminary. And my mother-in-law had worked for 44 years as the payroll supervisor in the district here in Texas, and she saw me struggling, and said, "Hey, are you tired of working all these odd jobs? There is a classroom, or there's a position for an aide in a classroom for students with autism, and would you be interested?" And I was like, "Sure," because I was a janitor. I washed dishes at the high school.
Mm.
You name it,
This
I
was
did it.
this was about mid
This,
1990s, right?
yeah, well, this was
Okay.
early, yeah, mid '90s. Um, and so went in, got the job. My mentor had just moved in. She was a 15-year veteran. She had practiced discrete trial and a lot of different other things. And what really captured me, she was unloading a box of books, and um, I said, "Hey, do you want help with that?" And we started pulling books out, and we pulled out Temple Grandin's book, um, Emergence, Label Autistic. So we had been with kids for about 2 to 3 weeks at that point, and I my only experience with children on the spectrum at that point was Rain Man. I'd seen the movie. Um, and so I pulled this book out and I said, "What's this?" And she said, "That's a book by a lady with autism." And she said, "Nah, you wouldn't be interested in that." Like, yeah, I would. So she loaned me the book. I stole the book. Um, I marked up the book, and it became literally my guidebook for figuring these children out. The children that we saw back in 95, 96, or 94, 95, were a lot different than the children that I served after that. 5, 10 years down the road, it became a different, uh, totally different landscape. Um, the children back then were very Skinnerian, nonverbal, uh, low cognitive skills children in a self-contained environment. And so basically, I would see what they would do, and I would go find what Temple would say because she's the foremost authority because she has autism, and I figured them out slowly but surely, and that became that was the driving factor. Um, was trying to figure out why are they doing what they do, and then once
Mm-hmm.
I could see things through a different lens, that lens of autism, um, by looking into Temple's book, and then it slowly started coming together, and I learned to really do more. Um, I could figure out what intervention would be better to
Mm-hmm.
serve a particular student and a particular student's needs. So that's kind of the nutshell. I got alternative
Yeah.
certification, um, and I took two of the hardest students in the district. Both of them were around 12, 13 years old. um, had a fight with my special ed director. He said he would never put a alternative certification intern into a classroom, especially with these two guys. And basically, um, I told him he could either hire me and put me in that class with my mentor teacher down the road, um, as my mentor for this, or I was going to Dallas ISD. And he yelled at me and said, "It goes against my better judgment, but I do it. I'm not losing you to Dallas." I said, "Okay." So that started the process, and I will tell you, those two kids are indelibly etched in my memory. Um, they're wonderful, wonderful young men. One, we potty trained within a semester. He'd been in diapers for 13 years. And um, I had a great mentor who knew what to do, and we got her done. And it was an awesome experience. The other kiddo was on the wrong medication and kept hitting the snot. He'd slap you across the face, and you could literally feel the imprint of his hand across your face.
Oh.
And if you saw the chair he was in, people would go to jail for the chair that they were in today, or
Mm.
if it were today. He had a strap across his chest, a strap across his waist, a a tray. It's called a Riften chair, but it was mounted on a platform that with wheels, so you could roll him around. It had a tray that literally zip tied, not zip tied, but a tie across the back, um, and then a shoulder harness. I mean, he was literally strapped to this chair. Um, and he would get upset and just smack you. Um, and over time, started going to IEP meetings and finding out, oh, this kiddo is on this certain type of medication. Started researching that medication, and I found out that irritability and it made the kiddo sleepy. And so I talked to the mom and said, "Hey, I've researched this. I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. But could you talk to your pediatrician about this particular medicine?" They took that kid. They started weaning him off, and finally took him off. And that kid was the sweetest thing. He never sat in that chair ever again. Um, and that was my intern year. That I didn't even do student teaching. That was my student teaching. And suddenly all the kids in school at this intermediate campus knew the kids' names. The kids were out of the classroom. We were doing field trips, walking field trips to different places. My mentor teacher would come and bring her students, and we would go and do things in the community. They got to be very well known, and that fact they had almost had celebrity status in the school. It was like they were the cool kids, and everybody wanted to come hang out with the cool kid. So my passion grew from there. Uh, went to went on to be a autism specialist in West Texas, where I'm from. Um, did that for 7 years, and then thought I was going to hit the peak of my career. I was a autism consultant for Education Service Center Region 11, which is huge. Um, I I presented to audiences of 30 up to 250 teachers, parents, administrators. Became the authority on in-home training, which is a Texas specific service. Um, then I went to Hungary, Budapest, Hungary, and
Okay.
it was there that I went. I get these. We weren't allowed to go out and actually uh, visit schools. That was not part of the programming back then. And so I'd get these teachers coming up, and I have this kid, and I got so tired of how I have this kid. Well, I don't know that kid. Till I can lay eyes on that kid, I can give you some general ideas of what to do, but I can't tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up uh, going to Hungary and got hands on again and got with parents again. And uh, in fact, it was with that mentor teacher that was from years ago. And so uh, we I got back and uh, I don't I love presenting. Presenting is I'm good. I'm a natural public speaker when it comes to that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. Um, but that's not where my heart lies. My heart still lies with those students and those parents. So I went back to the district level, and I served 10 years more at the district level before retiring. So long story, but it's it comes back to the students and the parents. And especially the dads. I just can't get away from um, that being the central focus of what I do. So that's how it all started. That's how it's ended up, and that's where I'm at today.
Now, a little bit of a personal question. This is just something I'm just curious about. Are you yourself on the autism spectrum? Any of your children on the spectrum? Um, or is this just something that you just worked in the field for so long and you kind of just fell in love with it and just kept doing it?
Okay, it's interesting you asked that question. I am neurodivergent.
Okay,
Um,
same. Yeah,
uh, I,
I have
I have
ADHD and a mood disorder. So
same here. Panic disorder, phobic disorder, all those comorbid conditions, anxiety. Um, so and we're the ADHD family. Um,
okay,
so everyone, but in my workshops, in the presentations, I would always have how many of you are, have everybody raise their hand. How many of you are affected by autism? You have a family member or a sibling, something, and you get one or two hands at the beginning, and then over time, suddenly the room is filled with hands going up. Um,
yeah, because everyone starts to
it,
realize it, and everyone's like, "Oh,
hmm
well, actually, well, I am affected," kind of thing, and
yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned the family aspect of it because
right.
my ex-wife has a little brother. So my ex-wife, I don't fucking know. But she has a little brother who's her parents had some later life decisions. All the kids were in their like 20s or teenagers, and then they had two little ones. So there's a pretty significant age
hmm
gap for these two little boys. But the youngest, he's very much on the spectrum. Um,
Yeah,
so it's really cool. And him and my oldest daughter are only like a year or two apart. Um,
right.
so she gets a very clear, I want to call it an advantage because she gets to see him so often because we live really close to them still, my ex in laws, of like seeing like someone with autism, like just every day kind of thing. And
Yeah.
he's a sweet little boy, sweet little kid. I got the opportunity last year. She put him into baseball, and he was on my baseball team. Uh,
That's on.
so I've gotten some great opportunity. I last year coaching for me was a whirlwind. I had two kids on the spectrum. Um, I had one kid with very, very, very profound ADHD symptoms.
Mhm.
He was great though. He's a great little kid. It was just a lot of redirection, and luckily
Yeah.
I'm trained for it. I'm trained for it. A little bit going back to when I was a teenager, because when I was a teenager and I worked at a pool, my first job was as a lifeguard and a swim instructor.
Mhm.
Somehow it fell into my lap to do adaptive swim lessons, which was really fun and really. I was like 17. I didn't know why. I just kind of did it. I'm like, cool. I get paid a little bit more to do adaptive swim lessons. I get more hours. I'm like, I'm just thinking about it. Cool, money, swim lessons, cool. I'm already really good with little kids. You know, I get this. Hold on, gotta spray the dogs. They're acting up. I keep a water bottle right by my desk, so if my dogs are acting up during recording, I can just
Understand.
spritz them.
Yep.
Doing this long enough, I know how to keep them calm. But yeah, so I that's kind of where my path started. Actually, no, it actually started way earlier than that. Um, where my very best friend in Head Start, so around like age 4, 5, 3, 4, 5
Mhm.
kind of age range, my very best friend in Head Start was his name was Michael. I don't remember his last name. I wish I did, so I could reconnect with him on Facebook or something. Um,
Right.
but Michael, if you're listening for some way, shape, or form, we went to Head Start together in Berrien, Washington, about 25
Mhm.
years ago now. And yeah, so if you're listening somehow, then please reach out. Um, but Michael was in a wheelchair. Um,
Hmm.
Michael was definitely different than all of our peers. I was different too because I didn't have a mom and dad. I was being raised by my grandparents. I was a little bit huskier than the other kids, and that was noticed. Um, but I was also like light years smarter at the same time because the ADHD. I also had different
So,
behaviors. I got angry and lashed out, kind of thing. But
mhm.
Michael and I, we just clicked. We just clicked. We were the very best of friends. He didn't let anyone touch his wheelchair. The only people he let touch his wheelchair were the teachers and me. He let none of the other kids touch his wheelchair. He let none of the other kids touch his wheelchair. Um, and I remember one day so clearly we were playing. I was pushing. I was running him around. I don't know what he had. I remember he was in a wheelchair, but I could remember he also could walk, but he was mostly in the wheelchair. And I remember one day so clearly that we were playing and there was a crack and the wheelchair caught and he went face first. Um,
Oh,
he was really sad. I was really sad. Next day, he's like, "It's okay. Like we can still play. You can still push my wheelchair. Like I'm fine." He had a bloody nose and everything, and I was just like
wow.
terrified. I was so terrified. I
Yeah.
felt so bad. I remember cry. Like I remember that day. It's so clear. I have a very visual memory
Mhm.
that served me very well. So that was my first experience. Fast forward, end of high school, doing adaptive swim lessons. Fast forward to college. I started out my college career as a special education K through 12 major. I really wanted to work in special education until I had a professor. I was about 2.5 years into my program.
Oh, no.
So I was well entrenched in my program. Like I was committed, like student teaching was on the horizon. Like I was about a year and a half out from graduation. Like things are good. Things were like, yes, yeah, all this awesome. I was starting to take classes with like adaptive PE classes to where we had like an adult community who was had developmental disabilities. They would come in and we would do PE with them, kind of thing. We would do games and things like that with them. You know, I was running these clubs. I would also encourage kids on campus who were struggling with their own developmental disabilities to come and like join and just have fun, kind of thing, and play with their neurotypical peers. So I was doing a lot of those things until I had a professor who said, "If you're not 100% in it, get out." The classic, if you're not 100% in it, get out. It's a high burnout field. You're going to burn out. If you're not 100% now, then get out.
Mhm.
Um, so I got out. Um, I got out. And then I ended up meeting my first wife and kids. And then I stopped going to school and then all the things. And I got back into school a few years ago. And I'm like, I have 2.5 years of freaking education credits. And Um, I have all my gen eds pretty much, and I have 2 years of education credits with some religious credits. Like, what the crap can I do? Because I don't really want to go teach. Um, like, I want to find ways I can still serve and work with kids in a different way because that's where I
Mhm.
kind of felt my heart was at. I'm like, I still want to work with youth and families. I still want to work with kids. And then, actually, one of my mentors, I'll call her Donna Halper. I connected with her through the essay, the Saber. That's Saber Baseball. Basically, they do historical accounts of baseball, like figures and whatnot. She had actually written up on my great great grandfather, Frank Albert Young, or Fay Young, who was at his time deemed the dean of the Negro Leagues. Um, Biggest African American sports writer back in during the Negro League time. During that big controversial time in baseball in our world,
Mhm.
like during Jackie Robinson integration times, like before that.
Oh, wow.
He was actually friends with Jackie Robinson. He helped found the biggest sports page in Chicago at the Chicago Defender back in the day. Like he was like big time. He was a big time reporter because what he would do is he would catch the train on the East Coast and then travel out west or out to the Central uh, through the time change. So then when he got to the Central, he already had the news. And so he would just travel, take it, and then take it to Chicago, and then the Defender would put it out. And um, yeah, so he was a magnificent sports writer, sports figure. You can find him on my website. That's my great great grandfather. Absolutely deserves and needs to be inducted into the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame, which is now
No
part of the
kidding.
MLB Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, because he set the floor. He truly set the floor and is regarded as the dean of the Negro Leagues. He's absolutely fantastic. So Donna, she wrote about him. We connected. She interviewed me. She's like, "What do you know? Tell me about your great grandfather." And she's like, "This all checks out." Um, I'm like, "Thank goodness," because I hope so, because that's my great grandfather. Uh, um, these are all firsthand stories. So I connected with her, and then she just kept pushing. She's just like, "What are you doing, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, you have all this potential. You have all these skills. You have this great mind. You have this great creative ability. Like you're so talented. Like what are you doing?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm thinking about going back to school. Maybe I'm kind of just working. I was working different management jobs, so I was getting paid decent, taking care of my family, and I wasn't too worried about anything. And
Right.
she pushed me in the path to go back to school. She connected me with people at Southern New Hampshire University, totally online based curriculum. Fast forward to a year ago, about 13 months ago, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in human services with an with a concentration in child and family welfare. And then now I am working and almost completed with my master's degree in developmental psychology. So it's thanks to her that I got back on this education path to be where I am now. So now, fast forward, I've been working at the same agency for the last year, working with youth and families in an intensive outpatient therapy program. So it's been just kind of a whirlwind, but everything's kind of worked out for how it's supposed to work out. So I've gotten the chance to work with
Mhm.
neurotypical families, neurodivergent families, kids with autism, kids with ADHD, kids with ODD, kids with conduct disorder, kids with anxiety, depression, and all the whole broad range of spectrum,
Right.
mood disorder, everything. So it's been an absolute blessing to be able to do that the last year. Um, then, not to mention the podcast and everything that has brought me as well, like connections like this. Um, but I agree. And this was all to get to this point. Just kind of a long-winded point there. Uh, that the more I see it, the more I work with it, the more that I am in this kind of space of dads and a dad influencer, if you will, and a podcaster, and done well over 100 episodes at this point. Um, I keep seeing this with like dads, kind of like you said, that it's so much harder for dads and moms to accept a disability, to accept a mental health need, to accept
Yes.
these things, just because your kid may be diagnosed with, let's say, autism, because we're talking about autism, absolutely does not mean your child still can't play basketball, baseball, football.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
doesn't mean that they still can't go and be the president of the United States. Doesn't mean that they still can't
Right.
go and be whatever they want to be, CEO or whatever. Heck, having autism is a freaking superpower. It's an absolute superpower. Uh,
If you read my website, you'll see autism is a superpower. It is.
it 100% is like when kids even have or individuals have like it's kind of I don't think it's like degraded way to say it, but a touch of the tism. Um, I'm sure you've heard that, but like even individuals that
Uh,
have a touch of autism, like holy crap! Like I wish I had a touch of autism. I just had ADHD, and
mhm,
I just get fixated for very short bursts of time, and I just have to redirect my
right.
energy into different places and keep myself busy. Like while I'm recording, I have like little random things I fidget with on my desk here to keep myself
Yeah.
focused. Like I just have ADHD, but I didn't get diagnosed till I was freaking in my 20s. I don't know how they
Yeah.
missed that growing up. You know, like I'm the kid that's finishing their work. I don't know how they missed it. Like I don't know how it was missed. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I'm kind of glad it was because then I was never medicated for it, so I got to just kind of live and enjoy it all. Um,
Yeah.
but I was the kid in class finishing their work first. Like first one done, boom, bada bing, answers everything right, 100% of the time. Great grades, great performances. I would read books super fast, take the AR quiz, bada bing, bada boom, get it done, get it out. Like
Yeah.
it all just made sense. I would talk and I would get distracted. You could redirect my attention to something and I would hyperfixate on it. I would get
Yep.
fixated on different things, Pokemon, video games, different things like that. I would get fixated on the same thing.
Hmm.
I was big on
Yeah.
routine. I was big on like structure. I was big on rules. I did the same kind of things every day. I would talk to the same people, interact with the same people, like the habits and the routines and the fixations. Um,
Hmm.
um, and then I would like just lash out when things would change, or if I didn't get to have a certain thing.
Hmm.
Um, like back then, it would have been more like that would have fallen into the
Right.
ADD category.
Right.
Because I wasn't really hyper. I didn't have the hyperactivity, the fidgeting, the moving, the everything like that. Because I could stay focused,
Right.
and I just couldn't pay attention because I was bored. I was unengaged. So how that was missed for my entire childhood, I have no clue. Someone dropped the ball somewhere. Uh,
Here.
so you know, it's
Yeah. I I we have a similar background because of I always thought my last name must have been Turnaround because they'd say Michael Turnaround.
uh,
So um, I was the social butterfly in the class,
yep,
class clown.
yep.
I got bored easy,
I still
and
do.
again,
I still
I
do.
get fixated on things, and I would I would go and go and go and go and put everything into it, and then
Hmm.
drop it. And like, man, on
Yes,
to something new.
you're
So
still that
I
way
totally.
today. Are you still that way today?
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now, I did get medicated as an adult.
Okay.
My again, my wife took my son to get checked, and then, of course he had ADHD. He's my oldest son, and then my wife said, I think I have ADD. So I went into an appointment with her and to talk about my son, and the my neuropsychiatrist uh, at that time said, Dad, let's talk about you. And I'm like, we're not here for me. He said, you have not sat still one time since you sat down in that chair. He said, you got it. And then he started asking me questions. And of course, um, every answer led him to say, you need to be on some meds. Um,
Huh.
and um, so I ended up getting on medication. I'm still medicated,
Hmm.
um, which is that's a whole nother issue of trying to get medication right now with the DEA and pharmaceuticals having fights with one another.
Oh my
But
gosh, I definitely wanted to touch on the
can't.
medication next. So go ahead, and then I'll touch on my thoughts on
Uh,
medication in general.
yeah. Um, Being unmedicated, my grades in school were terrible. Um, it was horrible until I met my wife. And then when I met my wife in college, she actually helped. I learned how to write. I learned how to organize myself. She was a 4.0 student going on a full ride scholarship to a private college or a private university. And so she kind of started guiding me. And then I got my master's in education um, with educational leadership. So my thought was I was going to be a special ed director, and then after sitting and listening to what sped directors have to do and go through, like No way will I
Yeah,
ever sit behind that very wood desk and hand out orders and take mad parent phone calls and deal with nah, not interested. I'd rather be an autism coordinator, or a coordinator for autism, or a autism specialist, and so that's what I stuck with. But medication, um, it drastically changed my focus. It helped me to really engage and stay focused. Now I still will jump around, from thing to thing, but it's not as prominent as it was when I was younger. Um, I I was extremely hyper as a young kid and constantly in trouble. Again, class clown. My fifth grade teacher told me that I might as well drop out of high school, or when I could get to the age of whatever to drop out, that I should drop out of high school because I'd never make anything of myself. Um, I got very behind in math, and my sixth grade teacher, um, bless her heart, she failed the first uh, reporting period, and I'd never failed ever on the report card. They always just passed me on. I was a average C, B, C student. I do just enough to get by. Well, I finally got my first Fs, and this teacher had had my brother and my sister in the class, and um, because of that, she she kind of knew our family history, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, just my tears streaming down my face. I mean, and she came up, she said, "What is the matter?" And I told her, I said, "My dad's gonna kill me. My parents are gonna kill me when they see this report card." She said, "No, they're not. No, they're not." She said, "I'm not gonna let that happen." So we walked down to the office. They didn't have phones in the classrooms like they do now, and she called my mom, and then my mom, she had my dad call, and um, so they both were on the phone, and she explained, "Here's the deal. Mike has failed, da 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 da, but I will come before school. I'll take him during lunch. I'll take him during recess. I'll take him after school, and we're going to catch him up. And there's no reason to get upset with him. Um, he just needs some extra help. He missed some things in fifth grade that you are aware of, and we're going to catch him up." And literally, that lady was a saint. She, I will tell you, by the time I finished sixth grade, I was well on my way to becoming an honor student in high school. I took honors English, which would be unheard of by the time if you would have seen me in elementary school. So, um, I wish I'd have been on meds, the right meds,
hmm,
back then. Um, but you know, it that they weren't prescribed because I'm 55, so that wasn't a. Those were just those. They're just boys being boys.
yep.
But I've probably gotten a lot fewer fights. I've probably had a control of my temper. I had a terrible, terrible temper issue, like you talked about. Um, it didn't. My fuse was very short, and I got that from my dad. My dad had a very short fuse. He was in construction. Was a stick framer. Um, well, the framing contractor, and so building houses. The guy was he was built, and when he got mad, and boy, you got out of his way. So I spent a lot of my time on my bike riding as far away as possible because the less time I was home was the less time I had to deal with him. So and I would be the one that would get the brunt of all of his hostility from the day. So anyway, that's kind of when you say medication. I've seen medication be a deterrent for some people, or not be a deterrent. Deterrent's the wrong word. I've seen it not be successful,
Mhm.
like the student that was taking the wrong medication. Became aggressive, and I've seen it turn kids around. There's got to be a balance between the two, and you have to weigh the side effects versus the positive outcome when it comes to medication. So if that's your segue into talk about meds, let's talk about meds.
100%. I think that's spot on because I think I'm overall grateful it was never caught and it was kind of just chalked up to where he just has anger management issues and he just has he's just a little boy being a little boy just angry and stuff. We're not going to worry too much about it. Well, no, I have a mood disorder and kind of things, and took a long time to figure all that out. But the right medication is so important. Uh, I think a lot of people are really afraid of medication right now. A lot of parents
Mm-hmm.
I work with are very afraid of going the medication route. It's kind of like a last ditch effort. They feel like, well, if my kid's on medications, I failed. Um, and it's hard to see because it's not like that. It's not That's not how it is. But you have to
Yes.
understand medication. I think it's even scarier
Mm,
right now
yeah.
knowing that there's 150 plus common medications that are constantly going in and out of stock right now. Are they actually
Yep.
in and out of stock right now, or is Big Pharma trying to jump up these prices to make more money? Supply
Who will
demand,
be?
we
Yeah.
that's a whole
I
nother rabbit hole we could jump down. But
yeah. Oh
uh,
yeah.
Big Pharma has its own very
Yeah.
complicated, very
They've got their
unethical set of
agenda.
issues.
They've
Uh,
got their agenda. They
but
do.
knowing that there's 150 very common crucial medications that are constantly going in and out of stock, including
Mm-hmm.
those that help with mood disorders,
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, depression, anxiety, those things like that are constantly going in and out of stock. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big reasons
Yes.
that they go in and out of stock so quickly is that your normal primary care doctor just throw meds. Prescribers, doctors
Yeah.
just throw meds. So there's
Put
an
them at
over
yeah.
yeah, it's just like, oh, let me just give you this general medication for your anxiety. But
No.
again, that doesn't help because that doesn't treat the symptoms. You have to find a
No.
provider and work with a provider that gives you a medication that treats your symptoms. My psychiatrist I had all those years ago, Nate, you're amazing. Big shout out to you. Um, but he treated my symptoms. He's like, this is what you have, but this is exactly where you fall. But these are the things that are going to be treated with this medication that should help. Where I used that medication for about 2-3 years, and then I was able to just kind of wean myself off of it.
Mhm.
I just stopped needing it as much because that was the
Right.
goal. That was my goal. I'm like, well, I just want enough just to kind of suppress things, not suppress, but alleviate
Yeah.
that stress, give me those
Yes.
chemicals in my brain that I'm lacking because that's what medication
Mhm.
is. If you don't understand it as a listener, I've talked about it plenty of times, but medication is that thing to give your body those chemicals that you are lacking right now. And then essentially for a small
Yes.
child that is struggling is to give them those chemicals that they don't have to allow them a second to breathe. And then you couple those
Mhm.
medications with the right kind of therapy program and the right
Yes.
support system. And then that medication could be a thing of the past in a year, 2 years, 3 years. Who knows? But if
Yeah.
it's not being coupled simultaneously with the right supports in place, then your kid's going to be on medications forever and they're going to keep switching it and they're going to
Amen.
keep zombifying your
Yes.
kid because
Yep.
your primary care doctor isn't a psychiatrist. They're a primary care doctor. They study general medicine. ER doctors
Mm-hmm.
studied emergency medicine. They know how to treat a lot more. Oncology treats a certain thing, pediatrics treats certain things, all these different professions treat certain things. Psychiatrists treat the mind and the symptoms and things like that. So they know what chemicals and balance are there because they understand the
Mm-hmm.
genetic makeup and the chemical makeup of the brain. Versus
Yes.
your primary care doctor who's just going to throw something at you, say, oh, well, here's some anti-anxiety medications, go knock yourself out.
Yep.
And literally
Uh,
they will knock you out and put you to sleep.
yes, they
Um,
will.
and so you have to be so careful. So I understand the reservation with a lot of parents, but that's when you work closely with your school, with hopefully your schools have a BCBA that they can recommend, a psychiatrist that they can recommend, because
Mm-hmm.
they have programs in place. Trust me, I work in a program where we get referrals from school every single day of the week, throughout the entire year. We get referrals nearly every single day, um, which is mind blowing. Um, but we get those referrals, we get these kids that come in, and we do all the things with them. but we get those referrals. So schools have the resources to recommend.
Mm,
You can also call your insurance. Call your insurance directly if you have insurance.
yes.
Insurance is a whole other issue in itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with the COVID pandemic that we experienced the last 2 years, a lot of those state insurance regulations requirements kind of dropped, and they really lowered their standards,
Mhm.
and they haven't really corrected them yet. So even if you as the parent don't qualify, there's a very good chance that your kid may still qualify for your
Absolutely.
state's insurance. So look into that, because it's possible that you can still get your kid on state insurance to be able to qualify, um, especially if they have a disability or a neurodivergency or something like that that is documented and diagnosed. Uh,
Right.
but and then from there, you call them. Hey, I need to get connected with a psychiatrist. Okay, these are the three that are in your network. Call. Get on wait list. Yes, you're gonna have to get on a wait list.
Oh man, yes.
Wait lists are terrible,
Yes,
and
yes,
there's
yes.
a limited providers. Like here where I live, here in the Tri Cities in Washington, um, a lot of people have to go over to the west side to Seattle, 3.5, 4 hours away for services. Some people
Mhm.
have to go to Spokane, 2 hours away for services. Some have to go down to Oregon, multiple hour drive. Some can say right here in the area we have one or two providers for a big populated area, densely
Yep.
populated area, not densely like Seattle, but like a pretty well populated area, serving
Mhm.
three different cities,
Yep.
technically five cities, two counties, five school districts, kind of thing. But two providers that diagnose and treat autism.
Mhm.
Very few medication prescribers,
Oh,
and you're fine. Very few med providers that offer med management and things like that. Very few ARMP services. So it's unfortunate. But medication, again, is not a bad thing. You're not a bad parent if your
yeah.
child needs medication. If you can recognize and validate the need for a higher level intervention beyond just maybe you've
Mhm.
tried outpatient therapy for the last year and it just hasn't worked. Nothing's changed. Maybe it is time to look at something different, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result. Um,
Exactly.
so make sure it's okay. Let Mike and I be the ones to tell you it's okay. If you need to
Yes.
explore that route, it's okay. Please do it, because you're not doing it for
Let me
you.
give you
Go ahead.
let me give you one example of a student I worked with recently, um, through my business. This kiddo is sixth grade. No, he's fifth. He'd be going into sixth. Um, he we'll call him John. That's not his real name. I'm not going to go with HIPAA, FERPA. We're not going to
Yeah, right.
go
We're not
that
we're not
route.
gonna touch that
Uh,
stuff here. We're not
so
gonna
we're
touch that
calling
stuff here.
John. All right, John. John has autism, a very, very high functioning autism. In fact, he's head and shoulders above everybody in his class.
So he would be
But
what, a
John
level?
also,
He would be a level one, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But because of the OCD tendencies that he has with his autism and that perseverative behavior, his desire to be right, his desire to perfection, um, he can't function. His anxiety is off the chart. Literally, um, he walks out of class and there's maybe a kindergarten class that has already passed, and they've now got him in a self-contained environment. So, um, and it's kind of a class for behavior, which
Hmm.
I don't really like. Literally, I don't like mixing children with emotional disturbance with children with autism because they learn bad. But for this kid, it was working.
Hmm.
Um, but this kiddo, John, he walks out and he sees the kindergarten class. They're all have their backs to him, but in his mind, because of theory of mind, that's the idea that people have mind, will, and emotions apart from themselves. He is thinking that they think that they know that he's in special ed. They didn't even see him walk out of the classroom, but he is paranoid, so he darts into the first hallway he sees to let that class get past. Then we make our way all the way through this building. Um, he's waiting to go to recess with his class, but they're not out yet. he goes into this vestibule area that takes you downstairs, and is literally shaking. And I said, John, what's wrong? And he said, I just don't want him to see me. I can't go. I can't stay out there. Wait, I can't stay out. I was like, oh, it's okay. It's fine. I totally get it. I'll stand here and watch for your class. When they come out, I'll tell you, and you go and get with your class, and it'll be fine. Well, sure enough, I said, okay, kids are starting to come out of the classrooms. And I said, okay, I just saw your teacher, so it's safe for you to come out if you want to. He said, no, I want them to start walking first. You tell me when they start walking. Oh, poor kid. So finally the kids start moving. I said, okay, they're now walking. Do you want to come out? I'll move you into here where you're at, and you just go get with the group. He said, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's all good. I get it. So he joins the class. But for this kid, I had a conversation with the parent. Um, and again, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, but when I see kids like this, kids that have that high of anxiety and they're that high functioning and they're there that, I mean, he'll ramp from a 1 to a 10 in that amount of time. I've seen too many of these students like this, and I'm not saying that your child is going to do this, but I've seen too many of these kiddos that by the time they make it to middle school, they begin to do some self-harm,
Mhm.
and they start having suicidal ideation. For this kid, and I told this parent that, I said, I'm not saying your kid's anywhere near that, but I'm saying this is a potential. He's at risk of having that type of, with his personality type, with his disability, and all the things that he's displaying, he could um, he could start self-harming and potentially have some suicidal ideations. I've seen too many kids, Trey, that have just, they bottle it all up, and they get to junior high and they are middle school and they lose it, and their parents don't know what to do, and it's like medication. There is a med. It doesn't have to be forever, but there is a med out there that you can it does, again, take it for, see what it does, see what the effects are, weigh the, talk to your doctor, make sure it's a psychiatrist that knows uh, neurodevelopmental disabilities. There's not many of them out there, but you want somebody that really understands that and that monitors the medication.
Mhm.
Please make them monitor the medication. If the med's not working, they can try something else.
Mhm.
There's so many things that they can try.
Yep.
And again, cognitive behavior therapy works if it's paired with medication.
Yeah.
Medication alone is not going to help, not going to do anything, and
Mhm.
cognitive behavior therapy is not going to do anything. Together, the two join
Yeah.
hands, and you you can get through some of these issues of puberty and all of that uh, with medication, and eventually, wean them off of it.
Mhm.
There's SSRIs, um, like Paxil, Zoloft. I don't recommend those. I hate those.
Mhm.
I've been on those, and this I personally have withdrawal effects from them. But for some people, like my wife, take can take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI, and she can wean herself off in a day. For me, it's a dreadful, horrible experience. But again, there's medications out there, and you need to talk to your doctor about what is the right medication. Find that right med, and then
Mhm.
decide how long that this your child's going to need it. It may be that they need it for the rest of their lives, and that's okay. But if it can be weaned off sooner, and they can find coping skills and get the right therapy, and the right therapist, a BCBA, somebody that a good counselor that really understands where their personality type, because just because they have autism doesn't mean they don't have a personality.
Exactly.
It just seems that
Autism's not a
that gets
personality. Autism's not a
it
race. It's
no
not a gender. It's just a. It's honestly
no
just a
and it's
diagnosis
not a
to help you understand.
disease.
It's not a disease. It's
Yeah,
honestly just a diagnosis to help you understand your kid a little bit better, and to
yeah,
understand that they need a little bit of a different kind of. They're going to drive a different road, and They're going to be on a different path.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and you got to help
So
them learn how to
that's
drive on that road. So,
exactly, and that's where your counselor, your therapist, school counselor, special ed department, everybody should be working hand in hand. It should be
yep,
a partnership, not
exactly.
us there versus them. I hate this us versus them mentality that it's the school against the parent or it's the special ed department against the general education. It needs to be everybody. These are our kids in our
Hmm.
community, and we all need to be working together hand in hand to make sure that these kids become responsible, uh, respectful uh, citizens of our community, and
Absolutely.
it's all of our responsibility. It takes a village to raise a child. When I first heard that, I thought, psst, bull. No, it does. It takes everybody working together, hand in hand, arm in arm, to walk through some of these issues and to help parents. You probably need to go get some therapy yourself. I'm going to say
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. And I'm gonna
Deal with
do
your own issues.
100%. And I'm gonna call out. I'm gonna
Yeah.
call out the parents here too. Parents, if you're not already doing it, you need to put your own self aside. You have to, dads, you have to put your own selves aside. Check your feelings, throw them in the trash.
Yes.
You need to put yourself aside. No matter what you think about disabilities, mental health, whatever you're thinking that's wrong, the negative stigmas, the stigmas that you grew up with, it's up to you to stop them. It's up to you to break those chains, break those generational curses, break those generational traumas,
Absolutely.
break those things. It's up to you. Break it for your kid because your kid deserves it. Your kid needs this help. And if you're the barrier, you're the problem. Um,
Hmm.
and parents, there's a also don't expect for you to drop your kid off or that medication is just going to fix your kid. That therapy is just going to fix your kid. That all these special programs are just going to fix your kid because they're going to work with them for what, five, maybe total 5, 6 hours a week, maybe. And then they're going to be at school for, 6, 7 hours a day. But, so that's
Exactly.
8 hours of the day. What about the other 16? What about the other
Exactly.
14 to 16 hours of the day? Who are they with? They're with you. They're with you, parents. You have to take the responsibility of continuing building these skills. That's where that partnership, like Mike's saying, that comes in. You have to be willing. If they're making a recommendation, and be willing to give it a try. Try to implement
Yes.
different systems at home, different routines, change things up, shake things up, try something different. If they're recommending it, give it a try. Try to implement it, try to reinforce it. If it's social skills and therapist
Yes.
recommends saying, your therapist recommends, okay, we started learning about social skills today and recognizing when someone's happy, mad, or sad. So, what I need you guys to do at home is I need you guys to do two things. When you're happy, sad, or mad, make it very blatantly obvious. Make
Hmm.
it very blatantly
Yes.
obvious every time you're mad and tell your kid, John, I'm so happy right now. Big happy expression, right? Or John, I'm really sad
Yes.
right now. Man, that made me really sad. Or John, I'm really mad right now. I'm really mad.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And then also saying, it to John. How are you feeling about it? Can you show me? Can you
Yes.
can you express it to me? Like reinforcing those basic social skills,
Yeah.
and just doing the things that are being built on in therapy and reinforcing them at home. Um, we're
Can I
working on
add one
following,
thing?
of course.
Can I add? Let me add one thing to that. If your child is nonverbal and you still do the same things that he is saying, you label your emotions and you give those big wide smiles and uh, but ask your speech therapist, your speech language pathologist, whoever, somebody has got an icon builder system.
Hmm.
Mayor Johnson is one of the big ones out there with uh, Boardmaker. They can make a board of emotions, and you can, if we're going to expect our kids to speak with symbols, we need to talk with symbols. So you could say, "Show me, I'm happy. Well, how are you feeling?"
Hmm.
And if all they can do is point, get them to where that is the two things that we wanted to do. By the time the kids graduate, there's two skills that they have got to have. One is to be a self advocate. Well, if you don't know your own emotional state, you're never going to self regulate.
Hmm.
So you got to have that self advocacy ish thing in place. The other thing just went. Phew,
You're good. You're good. I think it's
ah, yeah,
you're spot on. You got to teach. We got to work with our kids. We got to work with our kids to develop these things and understand them. Um,
yeah,
and you have to work simultaneously with the professionals that you're working with.
right.
Be willing to try and implement new things. It's okay. If something doesn't work, cool. Let them know. Yeah, that we tried it for a month. It didn't really work.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. We're gonna move on to the next thing. Um, no, that medication didn't work really. Okay, cool. Well, we tried it for a month, or actually, it's only been 2 weeks. Let's give it one more week with monitoring, and like these are the specific areas I want you to monitor, kind of thing. Still okay, didn't work after 3 weeks. Cool. Let's switch it up. Maybe it's a higher dosage. Maybe it's a lower dosage. Maybe it's a complete something completely different, um, kind of thing. There's all those factors. There's all these factors here, but I think that you mentioned communication and kid being nonverbal. They still communicate. There's still a way that
Yes,
every
all
kid
behavior.
can communicate. They communicate behaviors. They communicate head nods, pointing. Maybe they just need to be able to type and communicate that way.
Right.
Through a screen. Maybe it's a whiteboard. Maybe they can write. Maybe they feel comfortable with that. You have to be willing to find the way that your kid communicate and work with them through those communication things. Before we're gonna get wrapped up here in a minute. But before we wrap up, I do have one more thing that I really want to stress in this area before we wrap up. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, the June app. The June app is fantastic. That's Joon. I work with them. I love them. They're fantastic. Great people, great overall things. If your child is struggling with behavior, habits, routines, morning routine, nighttime routine, sleep hygiene, overall hygiene, putting their stuff away, kinding up, doing all the things they're supposed to be doing, depending on their age and their developmental area. Um, the June app is a great place to start. You can download the app absolutely for free. And within this app, you as a parent have control over the situation. Basically, your kids, you assign the task to your kids on their version of the app. They complete the task and they earn the coins to play the video game, to play games, to explore the world, to take care of a pet. It's like a little Tamagotchi, but like updated for 2024 for kids. They take care of their pets. They earn new pets the more they continue to earn coins and do habits and routines, coins, games, things like that. But they have to have the coins. But the only way they get their coins is they complete the task, but they don't get it instantly. This is a really cool part. On the parent app side of it, you have to go in and approve each task. Let's say the task is worth 10 coins to go and clean their room and tidy it up. You go check their room, it's still a disaster. Okay, 3 coins out of 10 because it's 30% done. And then you have the opportunity for that discussion to redirect that behavior and reset that expectation to earn the full amount of coins that are associated with that thing. So super cool. And you can try the app for absolute free. That's Joon. It's like a little light blue app with a little dragon J symbol. It's super cool. You can download it for free. And if you absolutely love it, you can save 25% off your annual subscription with my code YNGDAD. And then you can find all those. You can find all that information down in the description of the episode as well. It's going to be towards the bottom, to where you can find that and any other thing I'm working with, any other brands or any other deals or anything else I got going on. Also down there in the description is my link tree. It's a link in bio on all my social media as well. So with that, that's a shout out. The only other thing the biggest last message here that I want to encourage parents of all types of children, neurodivergent, neurotypical. I don't care. I don't want to keep hearing and I don't want to keep going to your schools. And I don't want these kids to keep telling me that your kids are calling kids in my program a freak, that are bullying them, that are not
Yes.
being kind. I absolutely want that to stop. It has to stop. We have to teach our kids the right way. You, as a parent, need to be more conscious of the things you're saying or doing. When you move your kid away from a neurodivergent peer and say, "Well, Johnny, go play over there. Don't play near that kid." That creates bias. That creates unconscious bias.
Yes.
Instead, how about you as a parent check your own bias and then you encourage your
Hmm.
kid to go over to that neurodivergent kid and say, "Hey, do you want to come play? Treat them just like everyone else. I have a kid on my
Right.
baseball team whose parents literally emailed me because that first email of the year I send out, I'm like, hey guys, please let me know if your kid has any developmental, behavioral, emotional, or any kind of developmental needs like that that I should be aware of. I get this long email from a mom. Coaches have written them off in the past, not really included them, treated them different. I'm like, okay, great. Well, this is my background. We're going to work with him. We're going to include him. Um, Practices come around. I treat him just like everyone else. I'm like, hey, bud, take a knee. Nope, nope, get over here. Nope, nope, you're sitting out. Nope, you're not doing the thing as everyone else. Just like everyone else. I'm not going to treat him different. I'm not going to take it easier on him. Like I'm not going to do like, yes, I'm going to adapt how hard I throw or the way I talk and coach him and whatnot. It's a bit more hands on, but that's just being adaptive and being flexible. But I'm still going to treat him as a real kid. If he's having a behavior, guess what? You take a knee. If you're having a behavior, guess what? You sit out. If you're not listening to me, guess what? I'm going to call you out. I'm going to redirect you. You treat it just like all the other kids. He's included. He doesn't think he's different because I don't treat him any different. He gets included. He gets to participate just as much as the other kids because he deserves that. Baseball is an all-inclusive sport. Baseball doesn't discriminate. Humans discriminate. Human nature discriminates because we're taught that. We're taught discrimination. We're taught hate. We're taught this lack of tolerance. But parents, you have to teach your kids to be kind. Be kind to their neurodivergent peers. Be outgoing to their neurodivergent peers. If anything else, I want to see your little boy that's in high school that goes to the special ed class and asks the special ed girl, one of the girls in special ed to prom. I want that to be your kid. I want that to be your son, your daughter. I want that to be you.
Yeah.
I want your kid to be in the viral video because of their kindness. But I don't want these to be
Yeah.
viral videos anymore. I want them to be commonplace. I want them to be common.
Hmm.
I want it to be cool for the neurotypical kids, the football players, to go and ask the girls who may be in the special education program to go and include them at the dance, to make that their
Yeah.
dates. I want that to be the commonplace here. I don't want it to be something we blow up on social media because it shouldn't have to be that to be commonplace.
Let me give you a real life example. My son is 14 years old. He's an eighth grader, and he's developed a passion. They read a book in class, and it's from the perspective of a girl that has cerebral palsy, and that just it touched his heart. Um, and so he's always on the lookout. Of course, having a dad that works in autism, he's always on the lookout for neurodivergent individuals. But there's a student in school. We're going to call him Evan. Evan struggles, and my son is he's off the charts intelligent. And so my son Judson decides, you know what? I'm going to see if I can help Evan. And um, so he meets with him for a few times, and he goes, Dad, I think he's on the spectrum. I said, it doesn't matter. You just continue doing what you're doing. So he has him in science class, and the kid is really struggling. The teacher calls him down and jumps on as a substitute teacher because he's not paying attention. He's not getting the notes because he's trying to figure out what's important and what's not. So my son takes it upon himself to say, hey, is it okay if I move over close to Evan and just kind of help him when he needs it? And that way it'll free you up to teach the rest of us and we can get on with our lessons. Well, they did that. He has become the peer tutor for this kiddo. And
Awesome.
you talk about changing his life. This kid didn't have a whole lot of friends, and because my son is kind of nerdy, but he's the top coder in his robotics class, in the robotics program. So people hang out with him. They just generally like my son, and he has introduced him to new people. He's he's just he's now blossoming. This kid Evan is blossoming. He's coming out of his shell. He's got new friends. He's got more confidence. He knows that my son is there to help and not to hurt. And folks, I can't stress what he said earlier enough. be the parent that urges your child to get with these kiddos that have disabilities, even if you can't see them, because there's a lot of invisible disabilities. Even if you can't see them, teach them to be kind. Just if you in a world in which you can be anything, be kind. And show compassion, and develop a passion yourself to reach out to the families of these children, because the parents are going through lots and lots of stuff, and they need friends. Most of the parents are isolated, and they don't feel like they can reach out to anyone. Um, and it takes a village to raise a child, and you're part of that village, and they're part of your village, and you need to make sure that that child is well taken care of. So do the right thing, um, and stress to your kids to do the right thing. It Be the difference you want to see in the world. If you want to see a difference, you got to make a difference. You've got to make your splash. How big is your splash going to be? It's your choice. It's the choice you make. That'll be my parting words.
I love that. How big is your splash going to be? I'm gonna write that down because that'll go good in something I'm working on right now.
All right.
Uh, but yeah, that's a beautiful way to end it. Sorry, I'm writing this down, and I have a hard time like writing and multitasking. Um,
Right. It
so
may be my next blog post, so you never
right.
know.
No, that's a good one. I like that. It might be mine too. So let's see who gets to it first. Um,
All right.
I'm just kidding, but no, Mike. This has been
Completing blogs.
this has been absolutely lovely. It's been a fun conversation. It's been an
Uh,
informative conversation. It's been fun to share stories, exchange stories, relate,
right.
connect, and that's the best place. I'll leave it there. How big is your splash going to be? How big are you going to have your kids splash? How are you going to help your kids splash be even bigger than yours, as
Exactly.
well? So keep that in mind. And then, Mike, tell the people where they can find you splashing.
All right. If you want to find me, you can find me on X/Twitter at Autism Man 11. If you want to find me on Threads, the Autism Man. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's Mike Hinesley. If you want to find me on if you want to go to my website, it's the Autism Man, all one word, .com. If you want to get in touch with me, Mike at theautismman.com. So that's me, and that's my story.
Love it. Well, Mike, thanks for sharing it. I'll have all those links below in the description of this episode. And yeah, go start splashing, everybody.
Absolutely. Let's see the ripple effect.